This has been a long time coming, but Apple has finally revamped the Apple TV. We are looking at the new 4th generation Apple TV, which brings a whole slew of new enhancements, including the much anticipated App Store. If you open the box, you're going to get a few things. You're going to get a new Siri remote control. You're going to get a lightning cable to charge that remote control. You're going to get the Apple TV itself, as well as that power cable. If we go ahead and unwrap the Apple TV, the first thing you may notice, not only does it look very similar to the last one, it also looks like it's gained a little bit of weight. That's because this new model is not only heavier, but about twice as tall. Other than that is that still same small hockey puck design. It's got a matte rubber finish on the bottom and a gloss finish around the sides and the top. It's about 1.5 inches tall and about 4 inches on each side. It weighs in at about 15 ounces. Now, aside from the new actual box itself, we have a new remote. The new remote is going to be a Bluetooth 4.0 remote, ditching the IR of the last generation, which means you can effectively put the Apple TV into maybe a cabinet and not having it laying out all the time. It has a built-in battery that charges using a lightning cable, the standard cable that charges all of Apple's iPhones, iPads, and iPods. It is now a completely glass top, which is split into 2 different parts, a frosted matte section that's a trackpad that also clicks, as well as a gloss section on the bottom. The top of it has a couple different microphones built in, so you can use it for Siri control. It has an IR transmitter right there on the end to control any of your other electronics, such as the volume on your receiver or on your TV. And aside from the menu and the play pause buttons of last generation, we now have a volume rocker, a dedicated Siri button, and a home button. That home button not only acts as a home button to get back to the main screen, but you can double click and launch an app switcher and jump between frequent applications that you may have open. Now, while this does have that internal battery and it is rechargeable, Apple says you can get months of usage out of a single charge with normal daily use. You can just use that with any other lightning cable that you may have lying around. And if you ever happen to lose this remote, which hopefully you don't, you actually still can use the old last generation aluminum remotes with this new Apple TV. And as I mentioned, it does come with a lightning cable, which is just kind of nice to have another one lying around if you have other Apple products. And the power cord is pretty much unchanged, maybe a few small adjustments to the actual side that connects to the box itself. If we compare this with the last generation model side by side, the first thing you're going to notice is that size difference. Obviously, that size difference is for the slew of new technology built into the new one. That includes 802.11 AC Wi-Fi with MIMO, Bluetooth 4.0, and the new A8 processor. If we check out the ports on the rear of the unit, you'll notice we still have HDMI, even though this time it now has been bumped up to HDMI 1.4. We still have the power adapter. We have the USB port, which is for service only, but it has switched from micro USB to USB-C. We lose that optical audio, but we still have that 10100 Ethernet port, which means, fun fact, that the wireless AC is faster than the hardwired. So if you use a 10100 like Ethernet cord, it's not gigabit, so the wireless actually will be faster. Once you've gone ahead and plugged your Apple TV in, the first thing you're going to do is pair your remote. You're then going to decide how you want to set it up, whether you do it with a device running iOS 9.1 or later, or if you want to do it manually. With a device, you simply hold it near the Apple TV. It'll connect via Bluetooth, and you'll have a few different prompts on the device yourself, and that will work with an iPad as well as an iPhone. Once that's all through, your Apple ID is entered. You can turn on location services, yes or no. You can elect to use Siri or not to use Siri. The new special aerial screensavers that they have, which are really gorgeous, and whether or not you would automatically download them. Do you want to send diagnostic and usage information to Apple anonymously, as well as anonymous information with app developers? You then simply agree to the terms and conditions, which you absolutely obviously will have read, and you are all in to your brand new Apple TV. While the interface will ultimately look very familiar, it does also look very clean and refreshed, lightened up completely, as well as a lot of new motion transparencies and parallax effects. You can move through the icons simply by sliding your finger around the screen. When you go to, say, movies, you can go up to any of the artwork, and if you move your finger around just a little bit on that trackpad, you'll notice it'll move the artwork around, and it has that parallax effect. So there's kind of like that depth feeling to all of that artwork. Obviously, it feels very familiar since this is running iOS, and it looks similar to the iPhone and iPad. We can now use Siri to open apps, so you don't actually have to swipe around the screen, which can get kind of lengthy if you have a lot of apps on there. So I can say open the settings app. You can also ask for recommendations or different TV shows. So if I say, show me Arrested Development, it'll pull up a few different options, including the TV show itself, as well as maybe a documentary that is also based on the show. You can launch that. It'll show you the actual TV show's preview page. It'll give you information about the show as well as Rotten Tomato ratings. It'll tell you where you can watch that show at, including Netflix and Hulu. You can open those apps directly from here, and if you don't have those apps, you can open it from the App Store. Now, what is nice is it will not favor the iTunes Store. So if you do have a free option available using Netflix or Hulu that you're subscribed to, it will give you those options instead of having to make you buy it on the App Store, similar to how like the Fire TV will kind of prompt you or push you towards the paid version. Now, it is nice that Siri is kind of context aware, so I can say, show me some comedy movies. It'll pull up a lot of them. You can then filter it down and say just the new ones, and it'll show just the ones that are recent releases. And you can even filter more, saying just the ones with good ratings. And using Rotten Tomatoes, it'll show you the highest rated of those new comedy movies. You can even filter it by actor or director if you'd like. And just as it did with TV shows, it'll do the same thing with the movies, giving you any other options that you can open that movie in. In this case, Pitch Perfect 2 is only available in the iTunes Store. Now, this universal search would only work with a few apps at the beginning, including Hulu, Netflix, HBO, and Showtime. However, this will expand in the future because they are offering up an API for developers to build into their own apps. As I mentioned at the beginning, one of the other new features is the aerial screensavers. If you go into General, in settings and then down to screensaver, by default it'll have that aerial one turned on. You can choose to use your own photos if you'd like, but they do look really nice and they will have new videos available constantly. You can choose how often you want to download them, so if you have maybe a limited data plan on your home, you can choose maybe to never download them or only do it scarcely, such as every month. If you do really like them, you can turn them on daily or monthly or weekly, and they will run about 600 megabytes each. And speaking of storage, this does come in two models, the 32 gig and the 64 gig version. You can go into the system and you can view the storage, so I can see how much storage space I have and which apps are taking that up. Apps will be limited to 200 megabytes as well as up to about 5 gigs or so on call, so they can constantly pull in those resources when they actually need them instead of all the time. Now, we're going to look at a few of the different Siri features for when you're actually watching a film or a TV show. So obviously we've looked at getting around the system, but there are a lot of enhancements for actually watching content as well. So here we just have Guardians of the Galaxy playing. So maybe you want to know who's in this movie. So you can simply hold down the Siri button while holding it down, say who's in this movie. It'll give you a little pop-up on the bottom of the screen with all the different actors that are in this film. So obviously we have Chris Pratt, Lee Pace, and everyone else. You can go into each of those individual profiles by simply clicking on it. So we can go into Chris Pratt. It'll show his entire, basically his IMDb page. It pulls in all of his movies and the TV shows that he's been in, as well as any guest appearances. And then the menu button will take us right back to our film. Now, this is not limited to just facts about the movie. You can even ask stuff like, how's the weather look outside? And it'll give you the weather report pulling from the Weather Channel, same as it does on iOS. Now, at first, we simply have this little card on the bottom, but you can slide up on that trackpad and it'll give you that full breakdown all throughout the day. Siri knows many other things too, including sports scores. So if I were to go back and I would hold down the Siri button again and ask, when is the Ohio State game? It will nicely inform me that Ohio State will be crushing Rutgers this evening at 8. Now you can see there's that little down arrow on top of that. That means this one can only be closed. Some will have that up arrow similar to the weather one, which allow you to open the full card and get more information. Others are just these small piece of information that you can simply close. Now, it is really handy to be able to do these little pieces of searches here, like what other movies is Chris Pratt in, but I have found it's a little bit annoying and you have to get used to holding that Siri button all the time. On your phone, you hold it for a second, it pops up, and you can let go. Here, you have to constantly hold it, which took a little bit to get used to. Now, one feature that has been heavily promoted and been reported a lot is the what did he say feature. So you can simply say, what did he say? It'll record it back, it'll replay it back a few seconds, as well as turning on closed captions. So you can see the dialogue as well as rehear that particular part. If you double tap that home button, you can see we have an app switcher here, which looks similar to iOS, at least the older versions of iOS. They're not stacked like they are on iOS 8, but it is a very handy way to jump around the system, jumping from maybe a video playing to a game and back again. A few other notable features: you can pull down from the top, you can see the info, you can enable or turn off subtitles, and in audio you have a couple cool options, including that full dynamic range versus reduce loud sounds. This allows you to turn down the loud noises, which is very handy if you're watching something late at night. You can also use audio to connect to AirPlay speakers right from within the video, or you can even go to Bluetooth headphones or a Bluetooth speaker, which is very, very nice.